So the Clippers are now 0-2 with Mr. I am the system. And you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about James Harden. James Harden comes off, in a recent interview saying that he's the system. And, when you hear him talk like that, it really can disturb some Clippers fans, because it's like some Clippers fans really look at it from a reality standpoint of who he is and how he's been the last 22 months, going from team to team and not making things right and burning bridges up, obviously. So when you think about what he's saying, him being the system, is he going to come in and try to do too much or whatever the case may be? Now, so far, he hasn't done that. So far, he's tried to fit in. So far, he's tried to be what the Clippers are asking him to be. And because I think Ty Lue gets a lot of respect from a lot of players simply because he was a player. He won as a player. And, a lot of people can relate to him because he really actually played the game. He's not one of those coaches who just got an opportunity and you didn't know anything about his resume or who he was and where he came from. And I think that goes a long way with players. That's the reason why I say that players respect Ty Lue. And I think that, James Harden's going to respect Ty Lue more than he did, Doc Rivers when he was with the 76ers as a coach, or other places when Steve Nash was a coach, even though Steve Nash was a player. But for some reason, he didn't get that credit, or maybe he's just not relatable as much as Ty Lue is. But either way, James Harden, to me, in the long run, as I said before, I don't want to base it too much off of 2 games, but what I've seen so far and how he fits with the team, I just don't see the fit. And I'm not saying James Harden's going to come in and ruin this team as much as he can and be, all that stuff. I'm just saying that, if it's not a fit, don't force it. You see what I'm saying? So maybe they might have to do something with James Harden coming off the bench or something like that. And I know Ty Lue really will have to swallow his pride and show some sacrifice himself, because Ty Lue utters that everybody needs to sacrifice. Well, everybody is including you. You need to sacrifice your feelings and your thoughts and your ego and, make the right decision for this team. He said give it 10 to 15 games for him to have a decision. Now, me personally, I think it might take a little longer than that. But, if he can come up with it in 10 games or less or somewhere in there, that'd be fine if he can come up with the ultimate formula. But at right now, you're 0-2. And when you think about the situation the Clippers in, it's not like it was last year when Russ came at the end of the season, damn near, with that coming to the Clippers, and they start out 0-5. See, at that point, it was a little bit different because I know it was close to the end of the season and the Clippers need to win all they could. But this situation here is just a whole lot different because James Harden is more of a distraction than he is a help to this team so far, them being down 0-2 right now in the 2 games that they play. And the 2 games that they've played, you got to think this is the most easiest of the schedule that the Clippers probably actually going to have. When Russ came in, they were playing teams like the Kings and, I think they had to play the Lakers, and they end up playing the New Orleans Pelicans when, like B.I. got healthy and everything, had that big game against the Clippers. They were playing actually good teams. Right now, James Harden's coming in with the soft part of the schedule, playing mediocre to sorry teams, supposedly, and they're 0-2 against teams where they should have beat them strictly off of their talent, not even needing continuity or chemistry. You don't need none of that to beat the Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets. You don't need all that. Your talent should be good enough to win. They got out-rebounded. They got outplayed in all phases of the game, and they just look very confused. And there was a lot of being passive, and I think James Harden is affecting things with the Clippers so far in a negative way where it could put them at a disadvantage, because even though, as I said before, regardless of, the schedule right now, it being early in the season, you still got to have that sense of urgency. Like I spoke about with Paul George in the earlier video, you still got to have that sense of urgency, and you still got to be cognizant of you're trying to be the best seed you can be. You're trying to get the number 1 seed if possible, so it all can go through LA. That's the goal, because you want to be the best team you could be. You want to put yourself in the best position, and you want to avoid the play-in tournament all if possible. And by having the mindset of the sense of urgency, even no matter whether it's the early part of the season or not, that's what will take the Clippers a long way. But the problem is the only person I feel like, or only few players the only two star players I should say I feel like they had that sense of urgency would be Russell Westbrook and Kawhi Leonard. And personally, I just really think they fit well together. Honestly, I never thought that Russ would play well with Kawhi. I think he plays well with Kawhi and PG, and I would really be shocked. Well, I'm not gonna say shocked, but I really wouldn't think that Ty Lue would break up that chemistry. He'd have to find a way to break down and just tell James Harden to come off the bench and run with the second unit, because I mean he's really just going to mess up the chemistry, and they're just going to have to start like all over again to try to build when they already kind of got something with Russ, and they need to just keep going with the hot hand in the situation. You see what I'm saying? So. And then another thing, with James Harden being out there, it really takes away from, even more so from, Kawhi Leonard more so than anybody, because Kawhi plays a different style of basketball rather than all three of those players, all three of the other star players. So it's like, to me, I don't know how he really would fit with Kawhi Leonard playing with him, maybe off of, because James Harden's more off a pick and roll type player. He's not really a catch and shoot guy. I mean, you actually saw in the game against Brooklyn, he was past the ball in the corner, I think from PG, and he caught the ball and he had to stop and dribble and then step back with a jumper, because he's not really a catch and shoot guy. I mean, he can catch and shoot, but it's really not his game. So it's like that ball dominance that he has to have, and Kawhi Leonard has to have. It really can make things a little difficult for the Clippers, and really all of them are ball dominant players if you ask me. So I mean, it could really be a difficult challenge, especially adding James Harden, that's the reason why I said in the offseason they really didn't need to add James Harden. Honestly, they were good with Russ and PG and the Claw. You know what I'm saying? They were good like that, if you ask me. I mean, because the continuity was there, and then you got to understand other players like Terrence Mann and Bones Highland, where now you're going to stunt their growth because they're not going to get the playing time as they would have if James Harden didn't come. So now that means other players are not going to be, that might not possibly playing up to their full potential because you added a 4-star in James Harden. Now, of course, as I said, the Clippers got time to figure it out, but I mean, I don't know how much time they have, because if you keep losing if you're losing already against teams like the Nets and the Knicks, who really shouldn't beat you regardless because you have more talent and you're the more talented team on the floor. I can only imagine when the Clippers have to play better teams and don't have no continuity, and you're struggling against teams like the Nets. I mean, that's just going to be a recipe for disaster. So I mean, hopefully they get it together very, very fast, because the schedule is going to get harder. And remember, the Clippers got more road games this season than they had last season, which Paul George complained about in the offseason, in which I made a video about. You can go check that out as well. So my point is, with the schedule getting tougher and you having more road games going against teams as the opposing team, as the away team, you got to really be ready. You got to really be on your game. And on top of that, when I look at this whole situation, yeah, everybody talks about sacrifice, but honestly, the person that should be deferring the least is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's the better player on the team. Yeah, Paul George can score, put up points. Hell, Russ can score if you give him the opportunity and put up points. All of them can. All of them can score. I mean, Kawhi can score. I mean, it doesn't matter. But honestly, they're going to have to really figure out or put together a plan to where, it's Kawhi eats first, everybody else eats second, because second, third, fourth, fifth, however you want to look at it, because Kawhi is the only star player on this team, superstar player on this team that's won a championship. All three other guys have been scoring champions, MVPs, all the above, but they never won a championship. Kawhi has. So when you think about Kawhi winning championships and knowing what it takes to win and having that sense of urgency every time he's on the floor, he should see the ball a lot more than other players, and they should feed off of his energy and follow his lead. And if Ty Lue doesn't do that, I promise you this team won't win a championship, more than likely, because none of them have that championship DNA. And even if they go far in the playoffs, you still need somebody with that experience and that mindset of knowing what to do and how to do things and how to maneuver through situations through the playoffs to get your team over the hump. And Kawhi knows that, especially coming from San Antonio, being taught by one of the best coaches ever in Greg Popovich. He knows how to win. The other guys, the other star players, don't know how to win. So you really have to defer to Kawhi Leonard. And Ty Lue tries these experiments where he's not utilizing Kawhi to his strength, as him being the best player, then it's all for nothing. It's all a waste of time because, like I said, these guys are very good. These guys are professionals. These guys are Hall of Famers. But at the same time, they're not champions like Kawhi Leonard is. They're trying to get something for the first time that Kawhi already has gotten twice, which is a championship. And with that being said, Ty Lue, honestly, the way he coaches, I'm not a big fan of the way he coaches. I think there's a lot of overratedness in his coaching. I've given him credit before in how he coaches, but there's no way in hell you should have the best player on the floor getting less shots than the third best player on the team. I mean, Russell Westbrook takes 18 shots last game against the Nets, and Kawhi only takes 16. There's something wrong with that, and there's something profusely wrong with that. And any coach that really knows how to coach basketball wouldn't even allow that to happen. Anytime you see any other best player on the team, they get the amount of shots they're supposed to. They get the shots up they need because it's warranted. And then on top of that, when you think about Kawhi Leonard, you think about somebody who is efficient. He's not a type of player who shoots bad shots like Paul George. When Paul George makes bad shots and they go in, that's good. But when he's missing those bad shots, it hurts the team and it hurts their chances of winning. And that's the reason why I said your best player is number 2 in Kawhi Leonard. It's not Paul George. It's not Russell Westbrook. And it's damn sure not James Harden. So hopefully he don't let James Harden and others run this team and run them into the ground, in which that's not their intent. Their intent is to win a championship. And if you're going to do that, you got to let Kawhi Leonard be Kawhi and everybody else feed off his energy, because he's the one who knows more about winning than anybody else on the team. But hey, that's my take on everything. Leave any comments and we'll talk about it.